I'm going to continue with these Dharma talks of Suzuki Roshi because I like them so much. And because not all of you are Zen students, I'm just going to kind of translate them, read a little, talk about what he says. I'll keep an eye for questions if I can, if I don't knock myself off Facebook again. So this is called Precepts, Buddha's Hands Effort. Most of you are beginners, so it may be rather difficult for you to understand why we practice Zazen or meditation in this way. We always say, just sit. And if you do, you'll find that Zen practice, just to sit, is not so easy. Just to sit may be the most difficult thing. To work on something is not difficult. To sit and have a problem going in your head, working out a problem, how am I going to redecorate the couch? What am I going to get for dinner? Oh my goodness, that's not difficult at all. When we have the idea of a self, we have some reason why we work on something. When we have the idea of a self, we want some reason why we work on something. Why am I thinking about this? We have an idea that we're broken up inside into compartmentalized compartments. There's me sitting, there's me thinking about me thinking, but it's all the same thing. And when you actually sit and when you actually pay attention to your posture, your mind covers your entire body and mudra and breathing. And so there's no dualism between mind-body. It's all mind. That's why it's so liberating. If you don't have any idea of self, you can remain silent and calm whether or not you work on something. Excuse me. If you don't have any idea of self, you can remain silent and calm whether or not you work on something. So if you have a self and you're just sitting and doing nothing, the self is going to get bored, you're going to get restless, you're going to challenge yourself. Why am I doing this? I need to walk my dog. I hate my mother. There'll be something to do. And the lure of that activity is part of the way that we keep ourselves trapped in this small definition of who we are. Because the self is actually just an idea. I've talked about it before. There's no organ that corresponds to the self. There's nothing inside us that corresponds to the self. Just like inside an apple, there's nothing that corresponds to the apple. If you take the skin, the pith, the meat, the seeds, the stem, if you take it all apart, there's no quintessential apple in there. So there's no quintessential Petey Coyote in there. It's just an awareness. And that's good news. Because we forget the way in which, from the moment we were born, people were instructing us and talking to us and telling us the way the world was. Look at the birdie. Look at the kitty. Say hi to mommy. Say hi to Uncle Jack. What a cute little face. What a nice little cheek. And that goes on without cessation. And because an infant has nothing to compare to, there was no before. Little by little, he or she learns to run that movie of the reality that's described to them. So that by the time they're 5 or 6, they can do it without any help. And that's the point at which they feel that they're inducted into the culture. If you don't have any idea of self, you can remain silent and calm whether or not you work on something. You won't lose your composure, so you remain silent and calm. That's actually a kind of test. If you can sit zazen and do nothing, not engage with your thoughts. I'm not saying stop your thoughts, but not engage with them. A thought arises, you look at it, you feel it, you let it go. because most of your attention is going to your body and your mudra and your breathing. And if you can do that, it means you have dropped your idea of a self, at least for that temporary period of time. Because your body's not going to get restless once it learns to sit. You won't get utsi. You won't feel like you're missing something. That's all the self. That's all the small mind. And we're taking a break from that when we sit. We're allowing ourselves to bleed into the space that's around that small mind, that's around that self. If your life is based on the usual idea of a self, what you will do will not be successful in its true sense. This is Suzuki Roshi. If your life is based on the usual idea of a self, what you do will not be successful in its true self. There'll be success in one way, but in another you're digging your own grave. So to work without the idea of self is a very important point. Excuse me, I'm getting a Kleenex. So why does he say that? If you have the idea of a self, you'll make a success in one way, but in another way, you're digging your own grave. Well, because the idea of a self, first of all, separates you from the universe. It makes you a separate little entity against the immensity and power and formless creativity of the universe. And yet, in reality, you have infinite numbers of umbilical cords connecting you to the universe. You're not separate of the universe. You've never been separate. And if the universe wasn't supporting our life, we'd be dead. We wouldn't be here. But the sunlight is supporting us, the oxygen supporting us, the water supporting us, the pollinating insects are supporting us, the labors of other people are supporting us. So it's not that it's wrong to feel that this body-mind is kind of a discrete entity. It has a span, it has a beginning and an end, but it's not the whole story. The other half of the story is that we're just an expression of the entire universe, which is expressing ocelots and dolphins and hummingbirds and mountain ranges and empires and civilizations, just rising and falling like waves, taking shape for a while and then disappearing. So when he says, if your life is based on the usual idea of a self, what you will do will not be successful in its true sense. There will be success in one way, but another you're digging your own grave. It's much more important than making a good decision. Even a good decision based on a one-sided idea of self will create difficulties. So I'll tell you a story. There was an ancient Zen priest named Fuketsu. And Fuketsu gave a koan, which is kind of riddle, to his students. And he said, if you pick up a speck of dust, the nation, your family will thrive. If you don't pick up a speck of dust, nothing happens. So a speck of dust is doing anything. We're alive in the world, we see the world, we love the world. Some of us are disturbed by the suffering we see and we're moved to do something. So what that doing is picking up a speck of dust. It could be building a Zen center, it could be saving the last whale, it could be becoming a nurse, it could be becoming wealthy and powerful, whatever it is. There are other people that can look at the world the way it is and just say, so what? And they are comfortable with other people's suffering and they don't feel impelled to do much about it. So they're not going to pick up the speck of dust. Nothing's going to happen. But the important lesson is for those of us who pick up the speck of dust. And I think you're here because you're all dust mongers. You all pick it up. You all care about something. So the thing that we forget, when we pick up the speck of dust as the self, we're only picking up one side of the universe. We think we're going to do good. And because we have a one-sided notion of ourself, I'm a good person. Those other people may be evil, greedy, deluded. I'm a good person. I know where my heart is. You know where your heart is, but you don't know where the universe is. And the universe includes everything. The universe includes good, evil, questions, answers, every conceivable possibility, the formless energy of Buddha nature, which is also your internal formless energy, your Buddha nature. That has everything. Your personality is like a little fenced-off wading pool inside it. Let's put something out for the kids. It's a hot day. We blow up a little pool, put water in it, throw the kids in it. That's what the personality is compared to the immensity of space around it. So when you pick up a speck of dust, you're picking up the entire world. You're not picking up just the parts you want. You're inevitably picking up bad consequences. You could call it evil. I don't like that word, but bad consequences, ignorance, delusion, being asleep. And no matter what you do, it's going to energize all of it, not just the parts you want. So you can set out to do something. You can set out to do a goal. And when you're young, you can head right for it without any second guessing, without any back thinking. But when you get older, you look and you say, wow, I joined this political party and there's some really stupid people in here and there are really some cross purposes in here. And I've been building this thing and I've been supporting these people as well as what it is I'm doing. Well, it's like that with everybody. So when he says to work without the idea of a self is a very, very, repeats it, very, very important point. It's much more important than making a good decision. When you make a good decision for yourself, that's a one-sided decision. When you're actually doing something out of Buddha nature, you have to be really tentative because things are changing all the time. And so it's more like being a fox. You know, when I walk my dogs in the morning, they're domestic animals, they're fed, they're full of energy. They just go running around. They chase everything that moves. They play. They're just reading the doggy news on every tree and every blade of grass, and it's really great. But if you actually watch a fox, it's kind of astounding because they take a step, they stop, they sense, they listen, they take another step because they have no energy to waste. They're always on the knife line between living and dying. They can't run like a cheetah who misses a deer or who misses a gazelle will have to rest maybe for an hour. If they have too many misses, they just die because they've exhausted their reservoirs of energy. When they chase wolves in a helicopter, even if they don't shoot them, the wolves die because they've just exhausted their reservoirs. So a good decision based on a one-sided idea of who we are is always going to create difficulties. And so we can't just go straight ahead like when we're young and we've got the answer. Socialism is the answer. Liberalism is the answer. Conservatism is the answer. And we go gung-ho. And we're going completely blind to the shadow side of the self, the part we don't see, the part we don't admit, the sides of human beings we don't like, which we also possess. So when you're trying to do things through listening to Buddha nature, your own deepest nature, you're being more intuitive. You're not so goal-driven. You're checking yourself all the time. Is this situation different? The person I had a fight with 10 minutes ago is a new person now. Can I really be open to what's right in front of me? For students of Zen, to work on something or to help others is to do things with our single mind. Our effort is concentrated within ourself. What that means is when we're doing something, we're not thinking self and other. We don't have a divided mind. You guys are out there listening to my talk. I'm here trying to find something to say. I'm concentrated on this. My whole existence is based on trying to communicate to you, who is just another part of my mind. And if my mind can comprehend it, your mind can comprehend it. But self and other is not helpful. Our effort is concentrated within ourselves, and this is the activity of our essence of mind. Essence of mind is another declaration of Buddha mind. It's under our conditioned mind, under our thoughts and stuff, is the deepest level of vibrating energetics, which is what we're all a part of. According to the sixth patriarch, he said that in the realm of our essence of mind, we don't do things outside of mind. Because in the realm of mind, everything is one mind. Buddha mind is the universe. Buddha mind is our deepest interior and our deepest aspiration and our deepest knowledge, to be whole and integrated and not divided. All that we do is the activity of our essence of mind. We follow our intuitions. Because the religious impulse is slightly different than just being free. The religious impulse actually isn't free. The religious impulse is following this inner aspiration to join, to be helpful, to serve. And there are many less choices. By essence of mind, he means the big mind and not the selfish mind. Of course there's dualistic activity. I'm talking to you. But it all takes place within the presence of big mind. And as long as my attention is focused on big mind and within big mind, I'm not caught by either side of the dualism. It's not like you have to do away with the dualism. You have to not be caught by it. You have to realize that both sides of the dualism are just different expressions of big mind. Me and Donald Trump. Same expressions of big mind. When you practice Zazen, you'll of course have physical pain in your legs, and mentally you'll have some difficulty. You'll find it difficult to be concentrated on your breathing. One after another, images will come into your mind, or your mind will go out for a walk and wander about. I have many difficulties in my practice, so I think you too will find it very difficult to sit in good Zazen. So this is Suzuki Roshi talking. It's hard for him to sit. It's not easy. We voluntarily restrict all of our movement. We voluntarily concentrate on good posture. We voluntarily restrain our attention to concentrate on our breath and just let our thoughts be our thoughts, put our awareness down on our stomach, tongue on the roof of our mouth, and just sit there doing nothing. It's so antithetical to the way we normally deal with time. God, I've got an hour today. I've got 12 things I should do. That means I can have 5 minutes per thing. That ain't Zen. All the difficulties you have in Zazen should not take place outside your mind. Your efforts should be kept within your mind. In other words, accept the difficulty as not being different than you are. It's not that you're sitting Zazen and, oh my God, I have these pains in my legs. I could do this so much better if my legs didn't hurt. No, all you are is the pain in your legs at that moment. And all you can do is interrogate the pain in your legs and get interested in it and get intimate with it, and it will change until your body learns how to sit, until your body learns this posture. I mean, I can no longer sit a straight sesshin on my zafu, on my pillow with my legs crossed, sitting, 10, 12 hours a day. My knees are too old. So I alternate between sitting in a chair and sitting on my pillow. I go back and forth and back and forth. But when you're young and you're starting out, you have to learn how to deal with this pain and this discomfort. And you have to sit with the determination that even though it hurts, it's not going to stop me. And this effort, this determination, is actually what carries us through. It's not just we make up our mind. No, it's a determination that I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to pursue enlightenment. I'm going to pursue freedom. I'm going to pursue how to be helpful and live a noble, dignified life. Even if it's impossible, I'm going to do it. If your small self begins to act without the care of big mind, that's not Zen. Your small self is the one that says, oh my God, it's so uncomfortable. I have to stretch. I have to move. I have to get up and go to the bed. Oh, I forgot to call my mother. That's your small mind. And we harness that when we sit Zazen. It's not easy. It's not easy for anyone. It's not easy to let that scratch on your cheek go and, think, oh my God, maybe it's a tick. I've got to brush it off. Maybe it's a tick. I'll get Lyme's disease. And you just sit there and you look at it and you watch it. And eventually you either get bit and get Lyme's disease or it just disappears. And you've learned how to increase your tolerance for discomfort and how to extend your patience day after day after day, even if it's only 20, 30 minutes a day. What you do should be well taken care of by big mind. Our practice should be based on mind, or original way-seeking mind, which works on and on continuously. So we want to continuously go back to this pre-formulated mind, the mind that has no pre-fixed ideas, the mind that's always new, moment after moment. Suzuki Roshi calls it saying yes, greeting everything that comes up with yes. It's not that you necessarily agree or like everything, but that you understand that everything that occurs comes because of previous acts and previous decisions. So nothing's here without some reason. Nothing's here without some rationale. We're all suffering and watching the war in Ukraine, but it's a long braid of things that goes backwards. I was involved in a political act during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. I actually went to the White House with 14 students, and we were invited in by Kennedy, the first protesters ever invited in the White House. And we were protesting the resumption of nuclear testing. And the Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved because the United States took our missiles out of Turkey, and we made a promise that we would not expand NATO to the Russian borders. And that promise stayed from 1962 to 1996, when Bill Clinton broke it, and they began enlisting smaller nations into NATO. And it's complicated because they're sovereign nations and they have the right to decide where they want to be. But little by little, we began encroaching on Russia's borders, pinning them in, putting missiles on nations bordering Russia. And Putin felt he had to act in Crimea. And of course, I'm not saying at all that it was justified, but I'm saying that his actions came from a long train of activities in which we were also involved. And maybe had we behaved differently, we might have had different results. So we say yes to everything in the sense of, okay, that's what's happening right now. And it didn't happen by accident. It came from a long braid of karma, a long braid of activities and choices. And our task is to just say yes, because that's what the universe is doing, and we're not at odds with the universe. We are the universe. Now he talks about precepts. The precepts are the kind of highway markers or guidelines that Buddhists follow. Right view, right effort, right speech, right employment. When we make decisions, we ask the Buddha inside ourselves, is this right speech? Am I talking about this person in the right way? Is my livelihood compassionate? Is it helping people? Is it hurting people? Am I making a right effort, or am I being indulgent? So Suzuki Roshi says the secret of practice is also true in observation of Buddhist precepts. The dualistic idea of whether to observe or not to observe the precepts takes place within your mind when you practice Zen. There are no Zen cops out there saying, oh, you broke a precept. You are Buddha. You have Buddha's enlightenment within you. And part of the task of quieting ourselves and calming ourselves is so we can hear the whispers of intuition, which always speaks softly. Never talks like the people on the television. There are no precepts to break, and there's no one who is violating the precepts. And yet, to make up your mind to make the very best effort to observe the precepts constantly, forever, whether your effort is complete or not, that's Buddha mind effort. Most people will swear that they will do something possible. Buddhists vow to do things that are impossible. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to cut them down. I vow to put an end to them. Desires are endless. I vow to cut them down. This is a commitment to a lifetime of ceaseless effort. Because that's the only way that we keep ourselves moment by moment by moment on the track of following Buddha's path. Because the Eightfold Path really is enlightenment. It is an enlightened life. If you could follow the precepts perfectly, no difference with enlightenment. So we take this vow. There are no precepts to break because there's nothing outside of Buddha mind. So we call this little snatch of it a precept. So on one hand, we know that. On the other hand, we know that there are precepts, and there are ways in which we guide our behavior and our speech and our activity. And we vow to do that forever, and we vow to get better and better at it. And you can't get better at it unless you try. You can't, unless you sit zazen, you can't improve yourself. If you sit for a long time, after a while you'll get comfortable, and then you start to say, oh, wait, maybe I can improve a little bit. Maybe I can get my head back a little bit over my ears, over my shoulders, because you have a standard. So the precepts are like standards. And when we try and we make the effort is what makes us Buddhists. Just like when our mind wanders, we bring it back to our breath in zazen, we go back again and again and again to the precepts, because that's the way we model the Buddha's life with our own. I'm going on and on. Let me see how I'm doing for time. We're okay. To make up your mind to make the very best effort to observe the precepts constantly, forever, whether your effort is complete or not. Of course you're going to fail. Doesn't matter. That is Buddha's mind effort. But if you put yourself outside of the precepts of Buddha mind, there's no time to observe them completely. If you're over here and the precepts are over there, well, you got a whole lot of crap to do in your life. I got to brush my teeth. I got to comb my hair. I've got to wash the dog. I got to empty the garbage. No. Everything is happening within your mind. I'm going to comb my hair like the precepts, like I'm taking care of my body. I'm going to wash the dog like I'm taking care of a sentient being. I'm not a part. It's not myself that's doing it. The precepts are impersonal. They're the product of thousands of years of enlightened minds refining this way to model a noble, dignified, helpful life. I'm not going to quibble. I'm going to get good at it. I'm going to vow to do it forever. That's the vow I've taken as a priest. If your activity is involved in Buddha's activity, meaning if it's generated from your deepest nature, from Buddha mind, then it's Buddha's activity. Then even if it's not perfect, you're manifesting Buddha's mercy and activity. Dogen, the great Japanese Buddhist who brought Zen from China to Japan. Dogen Zenji was enlightened when he heard his master strike and say to the disciple sitting next to him, "What are you doing? You have to make a hard effort. What are you doing?" The effort is Zen. It's not the result. It's the effort. It's the commitment to put everything I have into this posture, this breath, this relaxation, this letting it all go. That effort, that's the deal. Not to be able to count to 10 every time, or not to be able to never lose your place in your thoughts. It's the effort to get better, to get perfect, to model Buddha's life in your own. That effort is to observe the precepts. If we make our best effort on each moment with confidence, that's enlightenment. If we make our best effort on each moment with confidence, confidence means full commitment. They say that a tiger uses all its strength to catch a mouse. It doesn't have any idea the mouse is little, I only need to make a tiny effort. Confidence is complete commitment. That's enlightenment. When you ask whether your way is perfect or not, you're introducing an insidious idea of a self. Is my way perfect? Compared to who? Compared to what? You're separating yourself from the flow of Buddhist practice, from the rest of the universe. And the self is insidious. We've been trained to look at everything through the prism of the self, which leaves us only three options: like, dislike, or neutral. And we ignore the space surrounding the self, the vastness that it actually exists in. Imagine opening up the back of your head to eternity. Your spinal telephone is plugged into the universe, and the entire universe comes through you. So just like, no, I don't like ketchup on my cucumbers, you just shrunk everything down to the kids' wading pool again. When you do your best to observe the precepts, to practice Zen within the big mind, then there's enlightenment. There's no special way to attain enlightenment. Enlightenment is not some certain stage of practice. Enlightenment is everywhere. Wherever you are is enlightenment. When I started practicing Zen, I had this idea, this romantic idea of enlightenment, that it was a fence that I would climb over, and on the other side I would know the answer to every question. I would be like a samurai warrior. I would be better with girls. I would have no anxiety. I wouldn't be shy. Everything would be, cotton candy and sex whenever I wanted it. And, 50 years of practice knocks that out of you. So enlightenment is a verb. Enlightenment is not a state. We're not sitting zazen because we want some special state of mind. We're behaving in a certain way that acknowledges our dependence and interbeing with the entire universe. And we're putting our attention on modeling the life of a Buddha to live a noble and dignified and helpful life of helping other people. That's enlightenment. Whenever you do something with best effort, enlightenment follows. Why? Because your self disappears. When you lose yourself in the task that you're doing, you're home free. And it's not exotic. I think sometimes of women knitting. I've watched women knitting or watched lace makers once in England. They're gone in the activity. Watch a good mechanic lost in the activity. Watch a quarter horse roper, cutting horse, guy completely one with the horse, Watch a surgeon. If the surgeon asks himself, hey, how am I doing? He's going to cut the wrong part of somebody's brain out. Nurse, do you think I look good in this mask? The point is to disappear into the activity. That's enlightenment. And it's a normal human experience. Many of us have had it in many different contexts of our life. It's just never been identified as Zen, as exotic. And the problem is you can't hold on to it. So one of the things that the precepts do is that they govern your behavior when you're not enlightened, when you haven't disappeared into the task, and so you don't generate bad karma by laziness and carelessness and greediness and, delusion. You just keep yourself on the straight and narrow till the next time, and you disappear into that task. This is very important for our Zen practice in our everyday life. We should make this kind of effort in our everyday life, just like we do in Zen. In order to have this kind of practice in everyday life, you want your friend, you want your teacher, you want the precepts. Some form is necessary. This is really important. Some form is necessary because it's not possible to be concentrated in an uncertain way. There must be strict rules to observe. Because of the rules, the way of sitting, the way of practice, it's possible to be concentrated. If I could meditate like this, and you could meditate like this, and I could meditate like that, there's no standard, there's no way to judge how am I doing, there's nothing to look at. There's no way to discipline the mind. So we have these impersonal forms. I showed you once the mudra, this mudra that we have. We don't let it collapse. We don't let our thumbs disappear. That's it. We have our posture. We have our breathing. And because we have that, we can concentrate. Because we can pay attention to that. So actually, when you see all these people running around the street screaming freedom, they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just thinking about doing whatever they want, whenever they want. Country's not going to operate that way. A family's not going to operate that way. It's just stupidity. So rules and forms are useful to us. They're not imposed by exterior authority. We decide to sit. We decide to meditate. We know what a tangled up ball of barbed wire our life is most of the time. So we dedicate ourselves to doing this. So there's no sense saying, I don't like organized religion. That's like saying, I want to do what I want when I want. I want to do it my own way. I want to do it just the way little Petey thinks it should be done. And little Petey's the one shooting dope in the backseat of the car. Or little Petey's the one getting into trouble with, I'm not going to expand on that. But you get my point. That's not big mind. Because of the rules, because of the way of sitting, the way of practice, it's possible to be concentrated. Without purpose or aim, you can't organize your life. My master, Kishizawa Roshi, used to say, we had to have a vow or an aim to accomplish. There's a very good Zen master named Shokaku Okamura, who's written a book called Living by Vow, where he talks about it. Talks about vows. Vows are decisions we make with the totality of our being. It's not a promise where you can cross your fingers behind your back. It's a deep dedication to accomplish something. The aim we may have may not be perfect in its strict sense, but even so, it's necessary for us to have it. It's like a lamp in the dark. It's like a guideline to carry us in the right direction. It's like the precepts. Even though it's almost impossible to observe them, we have to have them. Without the aim in our life and the precepts, we can't be a good Buddhist. We can't actualize our way. So when you sit Zazen long enough, we're all sitting exactly the same way, but our bodies are different. So your way will be slightly different than mine, and you'll settle into your way. And your way is only definable and identifiable next to the form. I think I've told you this story before, but when you used to go to Zen Center in the morning, you'd stand in the hall and shashu. Shashu is this way of standing with your thumb and your hands folded around your thumb. The other thumb is sitting, and it's a strong way to stand. And you're standing there, and there are people on either side of you sitting zazen with their backs to you. And everybody's dressed the same way. They're all balderinos, or they have black robes and black haparis or dark sweatshirts, whatever it is. Everybody's really repressed decoration and frivolity. And one day I realized I could tell everybody by their feet. I could tell everybody by the shape of the back of their head. And it made me realize that the individuality is baked in. You don't have to try to be an individual. The more you try to be exactly like someone else, the more your own personality is going to stand out. And the more you'll be liberated. Now, if you look at a football stadium where everybody's dressing differently, some of them wearing big ears, they're in all it looks like is a mob. But when you look at a bunch of Zen people together, everyone is different, even though they're all dressed the same, because the individuality is baked in. So we should be very grateful for this rigid, formal way of practicing Zen and Zen precepts. You may think these precepts are useful if we can't observe them perfectly, but they are the traces of human effort based on the great mercy of Buddha. The precepts are the traces of great human effort, all trying to understand what did the Buddha teach? What did he want? How do I express it in my life? They've pushed the existence of the Buddha back another 600 years to 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years before Christ. Mr. B was talking and walking. The life we have now is the result of such effort. From one-celled animals to monkeys, I don't know how long we wasted, how much time before we came to human life. The giant redwood trees of Muir Woods have annual rings or layers, and we have these annual rings too in our human life. That's the precepts in its wide sense. You say we don't want them, but we have them. So as long as we have them, we should sit. And thus you have to know how to continue your effort to add another annual ring to the tree. I've got 50 years now of doing this. Who'd have thunk? In that way, we will develop Buddhism more and more forever. What he means is, we'll model it. Some people will see it and like it. They'll pick it up. They'll carry it on. That's how we get to saving all beings. Strictly speaking, we need more precepts in America. You think 250 precepts for men and 500 for women is awful and that it should be made simpler. Those were the archaic rules in the monasteries for men and women. There were 250 precepts for men, 500 for women. A lot of the extra precepts for women, by the way, were designed to protect them from the monks, who were not always such reliable characters. And a lot of them were political accommodations that had to be made with the monks to allow women to practice, because there was a prejudice against women practicing, which Buddha said, that's bullshit, I'm not doing that. Strictly speaking, we must have more precepts in America. You think 250 precepts for men and 500 for women is awful and that it should be made simpler. But I think we need more than we have in Japan. Actually, I think you will have more difficulty in practicing Zazen in America than we do in Japan. Why? Because America is a very individualistic society. Japan is a very we society. So there's a great deal of observation of the community and other people watching us and maintaining standards and copying great artists to keep the standards elevated. In America, it's like, do your thing. Now, I was one of the proponents of that, the diggers. We had these buttons that said, do your thing. The problem was that was only one half of the equation, because doing your thing also has to include doing our thing, doing everybody's thing, or nothing holds together. This kind of difficulty should be continued forever, or we will not have peace in our world. Without the precepts, there can be no congenial life for human beings. By reflecting on our human life and by respecting the precepts and rules of humanity, we will know the direction in which to make our effort, and we'll have the right orientation in our life. This is how we practice Zen, and this is how Buddhism has been developed. So, when we watch the news and when we see the suffering that's going on, one of the things that's unescapable to me is how all the alliances and all the norms of international law are actually rendered null and void by the existence of atomic weapons. As long as there's one, and as long as that one is in the hands of a human being who can be anything, there's the possibility that you have a Putin holding the entire civilized world at bay. We're all sitting and we're watching Ukraine being sacrificed to Europe because we can't intervene too directly without starting World War III and the possibility of nuclear disarmament. So I want to leave you with the possibility of considering a worldwide taboo on nuclear weapons, something humanity decides it has to do. Because as long as they exist, we can't have treaties and we can't have alliances, so we can't have an international rule of law. We're powerless against a Putin. We can only help from the sidelines. Remember, threatening with a nuclear weapon is using a nuclear weapon. So from my point of view, the two great existential threats that we face right now are global warming and, most immediately, nuclear annihilation. 7,000 missiles, each 50 times more powerful than the bomb that decimated Hiroshima, pointed at each other, Russia and America, in what's called launch on warning. So if they sense something coming at them, they go off automatically. A few years ago, the Rand Corporation did a study of a hypothetical battle between Pakistan and India, in which 50 nuclear bombs were loosed. And they were archaic nuclear bombs. They were the size of the Hiroshima bombs. And they found out that it only took 50 to create what's called global winter, to throw enough dirt, enough smoke, enough soil up into the atmosphere to block the sun for a decade, which would make harvests and crops impossible. So nuclear weapons are not exactly weapons, are they? A weapon is something I point at you, and I'm behind it, I'm safe. But a nuclear weapon actually destroys you in the way it destroys me. It spreads radiation, it affects my children. Fukushima is still throwing radiation up on the coasts of San Francisco. Chernobyl is still killing people from the radiation. So this is something I think we can dedicate ourselves to. I don't know how to do it. Feels impossible, can't be done. But I'm heartened to know that once upon a time, in the 1600s, the Japanese made the best steel in the world. And they made the best guns. And when they discovered that a peasant could kill a samurai, could wipe out 20 years of training with a bullet, they banned guns for 300 years. I think if they could do it, we could do it. Thank you very much. I'll say the metta prayer. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be happy and at peace. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be happy and at peace. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be happy and at peace. You know, I see some questions here, so you're free to go, but maybe I'll take a shot at answering some of these questions. So, Bob Loomis says, how is big mind different from neutrality? Well, remember I said the self only has three options? You have like or dislike or neutrality. Neutrality is like not caring. We don't live our lives that way. The universe, that's a judgment that's meaningless to the universe. Big mind is just all of it. And it's beyond judgments of good and bad and like or dislike. Those are all values that are attributable to small mind. Thank you. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Please take good care of yourself. Try to do something. Think about, say a prayer for the people of the Ukraine. Donate clothing. See if the Red Cross is there. These people are in desperate shape. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.